Hey guys, welcome to day one of I Survived the 2011 Japanese tsunami. So first things first, you need to have your notebook. So if you don't have it, pause this, go get your notebook, and get a pair of headphones. Everybody needs to have headphones. Nobody should be listening to these videos out loud without headphones. It bothers other people. Don't be that person. So once you have all your stuff, open your book to page one. And today we're going to read chapters 1, 2, and 3. You're going to have some questions to answer, so make sure you've got that notebook ready so that you can stop and answer the questions. I will go through your notebooks and grade what you have written down, so make sure you're following along with me. All right, you ready? I survived the 2011 Japanese tsunami. Chapter 1, March 11, 2011, 2:46 p.m., Yokohama, Japan. At first, the wave was tiny. It was just a ripple in the huge Pacific Ocean, but it moved quickly, faster than a jet. And as it got closer to Japan and grew until it was a monstrous wall of water, dozens of feet high, hundreds of miles long, it destroyed everything in its path. The wave smashed into crowded cities, knocking down buildings, swallowing factories, chewing up highways and bridges. It washed away beautiful villages, flattening pine forests and turning fishing towns, boats, tumbled like dice into the streets, smashing shops and homes. Sorry, there was a glitch there. 11-year-old Ben Kudo saw the wave. He saw the wave coming as he stood in the streets in a tiny village of Yokohama. At first, it looked to him as if a cloud of smoke was rising up over the ocean. Was it a ship on fire? But then a siren blared. Terrified voices shouted out. Ben didn't speak Japanese, but he understood one word: tsunami. Seconds later, the huge foaming black wave crashed into the shore. Ben and his family thought they could race away from the wave in a car, but the water caught them, and suddenly, Ben was all by himself. The wave grabbed Ben and sucked him under. The churning water twisted him, tore at him, spun him around like a bird caught in a tornado. Terror screamed through his body. He was drowning. He fought with all his might, but the water wouldn't let him go. It was though he was in the jaws of a ferocious monster, and there was no escape. So that's chapter 1. We're going to keep going, but first, we are going to write down what we're going to do today. So if you haven't filled out your agenda, this is going to be what you need to in your agenda. Day 1, we're going to read chapters 1 through 3 and answer questions. So question 1. Who is our main character? What was his name? The guy that we're reading about. If you don't remember, flip back over to any of these pages. Says his full name on page 2. But go back. You need to put his name. Write this in your notebook. Day 1. Right after that, what you're going to do is I want you to tell me what word did the main character recognize, even though he does not speak Japanese. So pause, answer that question. You can find the answer to this on the bottom of page 2. And then finally, 3. How does the family try to escape? Answer those for me. When you're done, unpause, and we'll continue with chapter 2. Chapter 2. 7:45 a.m. that morning, Yokohama, Japan. The score was tied with 10 seconds to go. Ben grabbed the ball and dribbled down the court. He zigzagged around guys who seemed 10 feet tall. The crowd cheered. As usual, Dad's voice rose above the rest. You can do it, Ben. The clock was counting down. 4, 3, 2. Ben shot the ball. It sailed for the basket and hung in the air. Ben's eyes flew open. He sat straight up in bed, drenched in sweat, breathing hard. It took him a few seconds to remember that he wasn't at home in California. He was at his uncle's house in the tiny village of Yokohama, Japan. His 5-year-old brother, Harry, had been asleep next to Ben, and now Harry was up too. Scary dream? Harry asked, putting a little hand on Ben's clammy back. Ben shrugged off Harry's hand. Not too bad, Ben said, careful to keep his voice from shaking. He never wanted Harry to know that he felt sad or scared. And besides, a dream about Dad was never a bad dream. It was waking up that was torture, remembering all over again that Dad was gone. He had died 4 months ago in a car accident near the California Air Force Base where they lived. Dad had been an F-16 pilot for the U.S. Air Force. He'd flown dangerous missions all over the world, and he died on a California highway, on his way home from picking up a box of donuts for Ben and Harry. A few months before the accident, Dad had announced a big surprise, a family trip to Yokohama, the fishing village in Japan where Dad had lived until he was 10 years old. They would go in March, during Ben's school vacation, so spring break. They would stay with Dad's uncle, Tameo. They all called him Oji-san, the Japanese word for uncle. Ben had always dreamed of visiting Yokohama. Oji-san was more like a grandfather to him than a faraway uncle. He'd come to visit them in California several times over the years. Ben had heard so many stories about Dad's life growing up in the village. He couldn't wait for him to see it himself. But not without Dad. Ben couldn't believe it when his mom announced that they were still taking the trip. He'd begged her to cancel, but Mom never changed her mind. Don't be tricked by that sweet smile, Dad used to say. Mom had been in the Air Force too, though before she had been. She's tougher than all of us, Dad always said with a proud smile. Mom wanted to go to Yokohama, and so here they were. Harry got out of bed, his Darth Vader pajamas drooping on his bony shoulders. Oji-san's cat, Naya, was asleep at the foot of the mattress. Harry scooped her up. The cat had to be 100 years old, her black fur rubbed away in places. She was a small, scrawny, with a crooked tail, and looked like the letter Z. Instead of saying meow, she had a shriek that hurt Ben's ears. Ee! Ben wished Harry would ignore the cat so he would leave them alone. But Harry had decided that Naya was a Jedi cat, Darth Vader's special assistant. And somehow the old cat didn't mind being dragged around the house as Harry played his Star Wars games, chasing invisible enemies with his lightsaber. Now Harry rubbed against Naya's head and looked at Ben with his bright eyes. Will you help me climb the tree after breakfast? He asked. I need to make my wish. Not that again. One of the stories Dad told about Yokohama was that the cherry trees are magic. If you climbed to the top of a tree, Dad said, you could make a wish. Ben knew Dad was just telling fairy tales, but Harry believed in everything. For the whole week, Harry had been eyeing the cherry tree in Oji-san's small front yard, waiting for the rain to stop so he could climb to the top. Now the sky was bright blue, and Harry was ready. You know what I'm wishing for? Harry said, leaning in close. His coppery eyes sparkled. I'm going to wish for Daddy to come back to us. The words hit Ben right in the throat. Harry, he said sharply, you know Dad is gone, and you can't bring him back. Tears sprang into Harry's eyes. You'll see, he cried, turning and running out of the room, with Naya tight in his arms. Suddenly Ben was crying too. He stood up quickly and angrily wiped away his tears as he pulled himself together. Ben had to be tough like Dad. During Dad's last tour in Afghanistan, When Ben was a baby, the engine of Dad's F-16 exploded. He had to eject from the plane over enemy territory. He broke his ankle when he parachuted down, but he still managed to escape into the mountains before enemy fighters found him. For 6 days, he said he'd hidden in a cave until he was finally rescued by a helicopter filled with U.S. Marines. Ben could picture Dad, standing in the darkness with steely eyes, never once stopping to moan or cry. And that's how Ben was determined to be. He went to find Harry. He guessed there was no harm in helping him climb a tree, but Ben was too late. He was walking toward the kitchen door when he heard Harry scream. He ran outside, and there was his little brother, lying in a heap under the cherry tree. He was covered in blood. So, let's answer these questions. Chapter 2. What is Japanese name for uncle? Pause it here until you're done. When you're done, unpause the video. Your second question is going to be, what was Ben's dad's job before he died? Because Ben's dad is dead. He died in a car accident, unfortunately. Pause it until you're done, and then answer this next one. What is supposed to be magical about the cherry trees? Okay, pause it here, answer this one. When you unpause, we are going to do chapter 3, and then we're done for today after you finish your questions. So remember, Ben's little brother just fell out of a tree and hurt himself real bad. Ben stood between Mom and Oji-san as the doctor looked Harry over. Ben's stomach was still twisted in knots from the sight of Harry lying on the ground. The little guy looked terrible. A blood-crusted nose and a big gash on his arm. But as battered as he looked, he wasn't so badly hurt. It seemed that the branches of the tree had slowed Harry's fall before he hit the dirt, and that the ground was soft from all the rain. The doctor, his name was Dr. Sato, checked Harry over very carefully. When he was finished, he put his hand on Harry's head. "You must be made of rubber, Harry," he said, in perfect English. "Did you bounce when you hit the ground?" "I think so," Harry exclaimed. This made them all laugh, even Ben. The sound that came from his mouth surprised him. It had been so long since he'd heard it. "I just need to fix up that little cut on your arm," Dr. Sato said. "It will just take a few stitches." "Oh." "No!" screamed Harry. "Show Harry a cobra, and he'll smile and reach out to pet it." The tiniest needle sent him into fits of total panic. Dr. Sato wasn't going to get anywhere near Harry, Ben was sure. Except it turned out that Dr. Sato was a genius. "Miss Kudo," Dr. Sato said to his mom, raising his voice above Harry's screams. "Is it true that Darth Vader has a scar on his arm?" Harry stopped crying. "Yes," Mom said, putting on a serious face. "Isn't that right, Ben?" "Totally," Ben answered, trying not to smile. "He got it in a lightsaber fight." They all looked at Harry, who finally took a deep, hiccuping breath. "Can I get a scar?" he said softly. "If you sit perfectly still while I do the stitches," Dr. Sato said. Harry held his arm out to the doctor. "Go ahead," he sniffed bravely. 45 minutes later, Harry admired his sewn-up cut as if it was the best birthday present ever. They all said goodbye to Dr. Sato. They piled into Oji-san's little car and headed back to Shogahama. The road was narrow and curved around a high rocky cliff. At one window, Pacific waves crashed against a wall of craggy rocks. On the other side, the view stretched across rice fields to the mountains, which towered up to the clear blue sky. "Daddy was right," Mom said. "I think this is the most beautiful place on Earth." "You should stay longer," Oji-san said. "I want to," Harry shouted. Not Ben. He was glad they were leaving in 2 days. He'd missed Oji-san, but being here had turned Ben all soft. He'd been dreaming about Dad every night, thinking about him all the time. Back home, Ben managed to keep his mind clear. It wasn't easy. He'd given up on basketball, even quitting the travel team he'd worked so hard to make. Hoops had been their game, Ben and Dad's. After the accident, just the sound of a bouncing ball would hit Ben in the chest like a bullet. He cleaned out his room so there were no more pictures of Dad. He ripped down the F-16 posters that hung all over his bed. When Mom knocked on his locked door, Ben said he was doing homework. When Harry wanted to play, Ben told him to go away. Sometimes it seemed like Ben had turned his room into a cave, a dark space where Dad hid after he was shot down in Afghanistan. Yeah, it was lonely in there sometimes, but at least in his cave, Ben felt safe. And that's where we stop today, but not until you answer this quick right for me. And you're still in your notebook. And you should answer this. Ben's safe place is his room. He goes in there and he locks the door. When he is upset. Where is your safe place? I want you to describe it to me. You can do it in great detail, and if you run out of words, you can draw it. But I want you to write until the bell rings. Once you hear the bell ring, you may stop and you may put up your notebook. When the bell rings, the video will be over, and you need to see what you need to do next from Miss Allen or Miss Creek. So remember, quick write, you need to write as much as you can. Ben's safe place is his room. He goes there and locks the door when he's upset. Where is your safe place? Describe it to me. Draw it if you need to. Okay, you're finished. Put your notebook away and check in with Miss Allen.